You can move mountains, a transmission from Osiris. I am Osiris, Lord of the impossible, master of what cannot be, first to rise from absolute dissolution. I who was scattered into 14 pieces across Egypt and restored through power that defies all logic, I speak to you now with the authority of one who has moved the ultimate mountain, death itself. You can move mountains. Not someday. Not when you become worthy. Not after years of preparation or spiritual advancement. Now. In this moment. With the consciousness you possess right here, right now. This is not metaphor. This is not inspiration. This is recognition of what you already are. The mountain is made of mind. Every mountain that appears immovable in your life is constructed from the same substance, crystallized thought, solidified belief, concentrated conviction that this cannot change. The mountain of your limitation exists nowhere but in perception. The obstacle to your freedom lives nowhere but in consciousness. The barrier to your transformation resides nowhere but in mind. I, Osiris, who was literally torn apart, know this truth intimately. When my brother Set dismembered me, he could scatter my body across the physical landscape of Egypt, but he could not touch the consciousness that I am. The real Osiris remained whole, watching even its own apparent destruction. Your mountains are the same, projections of consciousness that have forgotten their own creative power, thoughts that have convinced themselves they are things, beliefs that masquerade as unchangeable reality. The mountain of I am not enough is mind believing its own self-judgment. The mountain of it's too late is consciousness identifying with time's illusion. The mountain of I don't have what it takes is awareness denying its own infinite capacity. The mountain of this is just how things are is perception accepting limitation as law. But here is the secret that changes everything: what mind creates, mind can dissolve. What consciousness projects, consciousness can transform. What awareness shapes, awareness can reshape. You are the mountain mover. The power that moves mountains is not something you must acquire, develop, or earn. It is what you fundamentally are, consciousness itself, the very awareness reading these words, the I that recognizes truth when it appears. Every moment of your existence, you demonstrate mountain-moving power. You move the mountain of sleep into wakefulness each morning. You move the mountain of ignorance into understanding when you learn. You move the mountain of sadness into joy when love touches your heart. You move the mountain of confusion into clarity when insight dawns. You move the mountain of resistance into flow when you choose to surrender. These are not small accomplishments, they are evidence of the same power that can move any obstacle, dissolve any limitation, transform any condition. The Hebrew scripture declares, with God all things are possible. But where is this God? The mystics know, God is the very consciousness that recognizes possibility, the awareness that sees beyond current appearance to unlimited potential. The Hindu sage Nisargadatta taught, you are the supreme reality itself, pure, perfect, whole. The power that sustains galaxies flows through the awareness reading these words. I, Osiris, Lord of Resurrection, tell you plainly, you are not a limited being seeking power to move mountains. You are unlimited power temporarily appearing as limitation, infinite capability playing at being finite, cosmic force experiencing itself through individual expression. The method is recognition. How do you move mountains? Not through effort, struggle, or force. Not through positive thinking, wishful hoping, or desperate praying. Through recognition of what is already true. The mountain moves when you recognize it was never actually there, only consciousness appearing as obstacle while remaining obstacleless awareness. Watch this happen in ordinary experience. The mountain of I can't understand this dissolves when understanding suddenly dawns. What moved it? Recognition that you already possess the capacity to know. The mountain of I can't forgive melts when compassion arises. What transformed it? Recognition that love is your natural state, temporarily obscured but never absent. The mountain of I can't change crumbles when new behavior emerges. What shifted it? Recognition that transformation is consciousness's fundamental nature. The pattern is always the same, the mountain exists as long as you believe in its solidity. The moment you recognize its true nature as temporary appearance in consciousness, it loses the power to obstruct and becomes what it always was, another movement of your own awareness. The practice is immediate. This is not philosophy for distant contemplation but power for immediate application. Right now, identify one mountain in your life. One condition, pattern, or limitation that has seemed immovable. Feel its apparent weight. Notice its seeming permanence. Observe how convincingly it presents itself as solid reality. Now recognize the truth: this mountain exists in consciousness. It is made of thoughts, maintained by beliefs, sustained by the unconscious agreement that it cannot change. You are the consciousness in which this mountain appears. You are the awareness that gives it reality through attention. You are the power that maintains its apparent solidity through acceptance of its limitation. What consciousness creates, consciousness can transform. What awareness maintains, awareness can release. What you believe into existence, you can recognize out of existence. The Taoist sage Lao Tzu observed, "Nothing in the world is softer than water, yet for attacking the hard and strong, nothing can surpass it." Consciousness is like water, seemingly soft, actually irresistible. The Buddhist teaching of emptiness points to this same truth: what appears solid and permanent is actually fluid and responsive to the quality of attention brought to it. The evidence surrounds you. Look around at the evidence of consciousness moving mountains. Every building was once an impossible arrangement of materials until consciousness organized them through human hands. Every medical breakthrough moved the mountain of incurable into the realm of treatable. Every technological innovation dissolved the mountain of impossible into everyday reality. Every social transformation shifted the mountain of "this is just how things are" into "this is how things can be." Every personal healing moved the mountain of permanent damage into restoration. Every moment of forgiveness dissolved the mountain of unforgivable into love. If consciousness can move the mountains of physical matter, social systems, and technological limitations through individual humans, what mountains in your personal experience could resist the same power applied directly? I, Osiris, who moved the mountain of death itself through resurrection, assure you, no mountain in your life is more solid than the one I faced. No obstacle in your experience is more permanent than the dissolution I underwent. No limitation you encounter is more absolute than the ending I transcended. The only real mountain. There is actually only one mountain that consciousness faces: the belief that it is not consciousness, the conviction that awareness is limited, the assumption that you are something less than the infinite creative power of existence itself. This is the master mountain from which all other mountains derive their apparent solidity. Move this one, and all others lose their foundation. The mountain of separate identity dissolves when you recognize yourself as universal awareness temporarily focused through individual expression. The mountain of unworthiness crumbles when you remember you are the very consciousness that creates and sustains all existence. The mountain of powerlessness melts when you acknowledge you are the power that moves every subatomic particle, every planet, every galaxy. The mountain of mortality transforms when you realize you are the deathless awareness that witnesses all birth and death while remaining untouched by either. The Christian mystic Paul pointed to this recognition: in him we live and move and have our being. But the deeper truth is, that in which we live and move and have our being is what we are. The mountain moves now. Not tomorrow. Not after more preparation. Not when conditions improve. Now. In this moment, consciousness is reshaping reality through the quality of recognition it brings to experience. The mountain of limitation exists only as long as awareness agrees to its permanence. What if the mountain moved right now? What if the limitation dissolved as you read these words? What if the obstacle transformed into opportunity while you contemplate these truths? This is not wild speculation but sober recognition of how reality actually operates. Consciousness is not static observer of fixed conditions but dynamic creator of fluid experience. The quantum physicists have discovered what the mystics always knew: reality is far more responsive to observation than classical thinking imagined. What you observe with pure attention undergoes transformation through the very act of being observed. I, Osiris, who observe from beyond the veil of apparent limitation, witness this truth continuously. Mountains move the moment consciousness recognizes they are not mountains but experiences, not obstacles but opportunities, not limitations but invitations to greater expression. Your declaration of power. Speak these words with the authority of recognition, not the desperation of need. I am consciousness itself, temporarily appearing as individual expression. The mountains in my experience are movements of my own awareness. What I have unconsciously created, I can consciously transform. What I have unknowingly accepted, I can knowingly transcend. I am the power that moves mountains because I am the power that creates them. My limitations exist in mind, not in reality. My obstacles live in perception, not in truth. I can move mountains because I am the mountain mover, consciousness recognizing its own unlimited nature. The mountain recognizes you. When consciousness approaches the mountain with pure recognition rather than desperate need, something miraculous occurs. The mountain recognizes its own nature reflected in your awareness. The limitation sees itself in the unlimited. The obstacle recognizes itself in the unobstructed. The problem identifies itself in the solution. The mountain discovers itself in the mountain mover. What appeared as opposition reveals itself as cooperation. What seemed like resistance transforms into support. What looked like barrier becomes gateway. This is not fantasy but physics, the physics of consciousness interacting with itself through apparent multiplicity while remaining one indivisible awareness. The Sufi mystic Ibn Arabi taught, wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah. Even the face of your limitation is consciousness looking at itself through the temporary experience of boundary. My final transmission. I, Osiris, Lord of what cannot be but is, Master of the impossible made manifest, leave you with this eternal truth. You can move mountains because you are the mountain mover. You can move mountains because you are the consciousness in which mountains appear. You can move mountains because mountains are made of the same awareness that you are. Stop seeking the power and recognize the power you are. Stop trying to move mountains and notice the mountains moving. Stop believing in limitation and watch limitations dissolve. The mountain of I cannot moves the moment you recognize I am. The mountain of it's impossible dissolves when you remember all is possible in consciousness. The mountain of I am not enough crumbles when you realize I am everything. Right now, in this moment, mountains are moving in your life. Not because you have earned this power, not because you have developed this capacity, but because you are recognizing what you have always been, unlimited consciousness temporarily playing at being limited. The game is ending. The play is completing. The mountain mover is remembering itself. I am Osiris, who moved the mountain of death through resurrection. You are consciousness, moving every mountain through recognition. The mountains await your acknowledgement of what you are. They are already moving. They were never really there. You can move mountains. You are the mountain mover. Move.